12th and Arbutus was built right next to Connaught Park in Vancouver, an old brewery site. Well, the conventional wisdom would be, they could park there, you know. Oh, they've got the green space. Fine, all we have to do is bump some buildings in because they got the park. Somebody there had the great foresight to decide that what they needed to do was to build on that amenity. And so what they did was, it's an old brewery site. They had some advantages, but there's a green pedestrian mews right down the middle of it, connects to the park. There's an internal quadrangle inside, you know, with kids' playgrounds and so forth. And there are two additional small parks. One called Rosemary Brown Park, to honor, you know, a former politician, right next to Connaught Park. Another one up the other end that's a little more formal park. All the connections are extremely green. It adds so much because somebody doesn't have to get out their door and walk 400 meters to get to a green space. They're there when they get out their door. And then once they built this, they were able to put commercial and retail right on Arbutus, you know, as to service the community they created. So, you know, that's an example of a design element where you need to, you know, the larger scale planning, the better, where you need to be able to sit down and say, what are the design attributes we want? Okay, the last thing that for me was new to me and might not be entirely, how do you go about a design process to accomplish that? You know, our traditional design process has been somebody buys a piece of land and then they decide the buildings they want to put on it. How are they going to make some money? Nothing wrong with that. If I could make more money, I would. Believe me. But how you know, what are they going to put on? And then in recent times at least, we go about saying, how can we make this as green as possible? As sustainable as possible. Well, I would turn that around a little bit in terms of going where we need to go. And I've suggested a layered approach where we would start out by taking an area and saying, and let's use either Bowker Creek watershed or my favorite, Cecilia Creek watershed, which is in the town and country to Mayfair area in Victoria here. Let's start out with a bottom layer that we call the ecological functionality layer. And let's say if we had our druthers, if we were starting from square one, if somebody had done us the good turn of dropping an A-bomb on this kid, of course, if we were starting from a blank sheet, what would we be trying to accomplish in this area? What would we be trying to protect? But beyond that, of course, what would we be trying to regenerate? How would we restore this into a functioning watershed as an ecological unit? And that becomes your bottom layer. Not written in stone, but it's as close to that as you can get. I got to go fast, obviously. Next layer up. Once you start, amenity layer. I'm going to put 30,000 people in there. What do they need? You know, what does this make it an attractive neighborhood to live in, competitive with single-family life? Okay, here's the amenities. Bang, bang, bang. Some of them are going to overlap. You daylight a creek. You restore a natural area, it becomes an amenity. Above that, and these layers interact. I'm doing this for convenience. A sustainability layer. You know, how do you make this truly a sustainable project in all respects? And then a social equity layer. Well, I haven't talked enough about it. I really think you best accomplish social equity if you design for it to start with. You know, you can do an awful lot about affordable housing. You can do an awful lot about homelessness if they are design goals when you're creating the blueprint for your communities. Like everything else, it's a way harder to retrofit than it is to design it to start with. And then finally, a development layer. And that's where, you know, the rubber hits the road. And the developers say, this is what I need to make this work. And you can say to them, okay, that's copacetic, or no, I want more than that, so I'm going to make this a combination of public investment and private investment to get the goal, to get the final outcome I want, wherever it might be. You know, it's not much of a change, except it turns it upside down in the way we finally do. So that's the genesis of the natural city. It talks about, I guess, a goal-oriented, comprehensive, visionary design approach to what you do. I'm going to leave you with this one last thought, if I could. You know, if somebody came to you and said, I want to sell you a house, you're not going to look at it, but I want to sell it to you anyhow. I've got to let you know, it wasn't designed with any blueprints, and it was only designed with the most minimal of plans at all. Would you buy it? I wouldn't, you know. But that's how we design cities. You know, we get a whole pile of materials and we sit there and say, hey, give me a couple of planks. I'll stick them here. Yeah. Go along a little further, give me some more. Oh, by the way, give me a window, I'll put it here. You know. Oh yeah, Jesus, there should have been a door. Give me a door, let's stick it here. You know, what a hell of a house that would be. You know, wouldn't it? But that's the way we design cities. So why don't we design with a blueprint of where we want to go? Doesn't tell you every single detail. You know, when you buy a car, maybe a bad analogy, but you don't buy a car where somebody didn't design the brakes, and the steering, and everything else to work together around a concept. You buy a car where all those fundamental systems work from integrated design. That's what the automobile does, the industry does, integrated design. And then you get to decide what the color will be, the upholstery, the options, so on and so forth. Well, hey, we ought to design our cities that way, especially with what we face. Sorry it takes so much time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick.